So we've got this is the final match of the evening with Nicholas Fennell on Elves and Tony again back on Merfolk. These were the 2-0 winners, I believe. Is that right? Fighting it out for the finals. Yeah, great. So obviously the tribal decks are working pretty hard to win this week's matchup. So we'll see how it goes. We obviously talked about Tony's deck before, but for anyone who's just watching this one video, should we give it a quick rundown, Lachlan?
So Tony's deck is a deck that uses a lot of Merfolk cards in order to set up an aggressive clock. So he's playing. This is one of the tribal decks in Legacy that plays a tremendous amount of lords. So it plays up to anywhere between kind of 8 and 12 creatures that say your Merfolk get +1/+1.
Wow.
So you're just kind of compounding those lord effects together to in order to create a huge board advantage.
To bring the beats.
Yep, bring the pain. And often they employ ways to make your opponent's lands into islands, so that their army of huge fish are unblockable. Because at least 2 of the Merfolk lords do say that your guys get an island walk.
Yeah, nice. So we see already a chalice on 1, which is pretty rough.
That's a vial.
It's a vial rough.
Yeah.
That's even worse.
That would be a lot worse for Nick if Tony had resolved a turn 1 even chalice of the void.
Off of an island,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
That'd be.
That would have been an egregious kind of happening going on for Nick. It's interesting. I don't know what Nick's hand is, but having a Gaia's Cradle that taps for 2 and not playing an elf, even when you can tap the Birchlaw Rangers and Heritage Druid to make 3 mana. I don't know what's going on over there. Maybe he thinks the Aethervial is a chalice. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm unsure.
It's a common mistake.
I don't think he's ever played up against Merfolk before. So I mean, I think this was the first time a couple of us were seeing it, and I don't know. Yeah, Nick's hand. I think I saw
and if
a Dryad Arbor.
if there's a Dryad Arbor in there, I'm not sure why you wouldn't play that over the Cradle if you're not going to use the Cradle mana, because your opponent might have Wasteland and you don't want to expose that Cradle to just getting wasted without having.
It's always a bit risky to deploy the Cradle without having a backup Cradle in hand. He might have one, but I'm not sure.
Yep.
But yeah, playing it when you don't necessarily need it, it's very interesting.
You see Tony just then being very surprised that Nick plays Dryad Arbors in his Elves deck, which is fair enough.
Well, sometimes you just got to get that Green Sun Zenithal 0 on turn 1.
Yeah.
Get that 2 mana.
Yeah.
So
you can see a 4 mana here. I'm smelling a natural order here.
Yeah.
You can see this is a quite an old Elves list playing natural order.
So yeah, he's playing the I guess the original, what you'd call the original Elves list, not the Chaos Elves that's come around. He did give it a go for a while. I think it was a lot less consistent than he hoped for.
I think. Well, it's just that Natural Order is such a powerful card. You know, you go Dryad Arbor, you can use it to pay for Natural Order, so it just seems so good. But when we're playing against Chaos Elves, it was a lot more interesting, I dare say, because it could.
The deck does get a lot of diversity in terms of things you can play that aren't Natural Order, because you don't have to devote so many of your slots to kind of building around this 4 mana spell, which is very powerful, because putting a Crater Hoof in play, as you can see, Tony's on 4 now, is an incredibly powerful thing to do.
What was just played there? Sorry.
Spreading Seas. See, Gaia's Cradle is now flooded out, and it's an island, and it's not going to tap for any amount of green mana.
That's really interesting to see Nick come down with the Crater Hoof on non-lethal as well. He obviously knew he needed to get it down, and I think
not much is stopping him from swinging out next turn.
I mean, but his only way. Well, I say his only way. Like, his combo is going to be Net of Sentinels and Wildwood Symbiotes, and if he doesn't have any in hand, but he can play this Natural Order with what he's got, then.
I mean, I think he's just using the time he had to just represent a lot of damage off Crater Hoof and putting now Tony in a spot where he has to block that crit off every single turn. He can't afford to take any damage from it. It's a 5/5 and he's on 4, so it basically puts him in the abyss.
Yeah, and if Tony doesn't have the hand that he needs, he's gonna have to start sacrificing Mutavaults, and it's just gonna get really sad for him very soon.
Yep.
Oh look, he's tapping it for blue. That's nice.
Maybe we're gonna see just a second natural order, and that's what his hand was. It was just multiple natural orders, but unfortunately Tony's got the Force of Will here. So that Burslaw Ranger died for nothing.
Oh, poor Burslaw.
Poor Burslaw Ranger. We hardly knew you.
Yeah.
But again, that Crater Hoof is just gonna come across. But we are gonna see a double block here to trade with it.
Okay. It's probably fair, right? I mean.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I mean, I think Anthony's got more of a chance of rebuilding his board than Nick does at the moment, especially with that guy's Cradle locked off.
Yeah.
It's slightly more like easier for Tony, but Tony's got nothing left in hand now, so
just a couple of vials and an Obro.
Yep. So Nick does have a chance if he can draw potentially to glimpse and then start deploying some creatures and trying again. But I mean, Crater Hoof's in the bin. 2 natural orders are in the bin.
Yeah, there's a lot of powerful cards that kind of Nick has lost here. You can see the players just discussing how exactly Nick cast natural order last turn, but Nick's clearing it up by pointing out that Burslaw Rangers and Heritage Druid did team up that turn in order to add a mana to the mana pool.
Whenever I play against Nick, I just let him do it. I assume he's telling the truth, but he just does tapping elves, untapping elves. You know, things happen. It's untapping lands.
Yeah.
Like, dude, just do it. It's like, I'm doing nothing this turn, so go nuts. And he's like, okay, I'm going to try and combo. I'm like, great. Sounds good.
Elves is one of those decks that does have a lot of game actions going on.
Oh, yeah.
So we've seen a Nettle Sentinel and a Wild Symbiote go come down, which are a key component to the combo.
Also, the Nettle Sentinel just representing a real clock here. Yep. The only thing that Tony has to hold it off is a Mutavault. But now with those untapped Aether Vials, I don't really think he can risk attacking with it to just have Tony Vial and a Lord and or even a True Name Nemesis and just kind of eat that Nettle Sentinel.
He doesn't, from my experiences playing with Nick, he doesn't often attack with his guys unless he feels like he really has to. He's really trying to get that to happen all at once, straight away. So it's
just a more of a conservative plan of like, I know I'm attacking for like 200 here, so I'm gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. And plus he's on 17 life, so he can even stand to, take some damage.
Yeah, and Tony has 0 clock here happening. He's just nothing going on. Like, there's no threats.
Which is unfortunate. He obviously thought that he had everything he needed with those 2 Aether Vials. 1 on 2, 1 on 3. Like.
Yep.
He saw that in his opening hand, I presume, and then he said, "Oh, great!" And then nothing's happened after that, which is very unfortunate for him.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was kind of forced to trade off those 2 creatures as well as ditching 1 to Force of Will. So he kind of got a bit sandwiched there by Nick's aggressive double natural order draw. I think he elected to pitch a Mirror Reader instead of a Curse Catcher to that Force of Will, so maybe having that Lord and that extra point of toughness in play would have been a little more valuable, considering that Nick's deck usually does generate an obscene amount of mana.
So Curse Catcher is the creature version of Daze, is that correct? Is the sacrifice?
Well, it only counts as an instant or sorcery.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
So
it's kind of a disrupt.
Yeah,
basically.
sure.
Yeah.
You could play many of them and just make someone's lightning bolt cost 4 or 5. Just start really ramping it up, getting people down on that lock. So the choice of that over the what was the other card? That is the Exile to Force of Will.
Mirror Reader.
Okay, what is
it's a 2 and a blue for a 2/2 that gives all your Merfolk +1/+1.
Cool.
And when you cast a Merfolk spell, you can tap or untap, take a permanent.
Okay.
So it can be used to like tap down blockers or even untap your land, so you can keep casting Merfolk spells.
Okay.
Or even untapping vials and just putting more Merfolk in play.
Yeah, right.
And you can see he's got the 3 elves in play necessary for Heritage Druid, and he's got the symbiote to kind of like bounce back this Elvish Visionary and kind of generate a bit of advantage that way.
So he's putting the little red token on top to say that he's used it, but he's basically returned Elvish Visionary to his hand to untap his what was that?
Heritage Druid.
And
then casting the Visionary untaps his Nettle Sentinel. So yeah, he's kind of got a little bit of an engine going here. I think I see another Wildwood in hand. Oh, we see another Natural Order here.
Ooh, here we go.
And he's got that 1 mana left over from the first Heritage Druid activation. So this is a Natural Order with that buy you up to pay for their Curse Catcher. And Tony really, if he has another Curse Catcher, he can't deploy it. If he has a Force of Will, he can't cast it. So I don't really think Tony's going to be able to pull anything out here.
Okay.
The only thing I could think of here would be a main deck Spell Pierce or a main deck Foster Storm.
Okay.
That would really kind of stop the Natural Order from happening here. But I think we're going to see him picking up the cards. It was a Force of Will, so.
If only Tony had a Chalice.
See?
Chalice on 1 against Nick is.
Would have been rough.
Definitely a pantsing,
Yeah.
but
so do we know?
I mean, Nick post board probably is going to bring in his Abrupt Decays, Rex Sage. He's going to have Rex Sage there. So he does have ways to get around Chalice.
Well, I'm not sure if he could be even expecting Chalice because
that's right.
he didn't see any Chalices in game 1, so it's possible he could still bring Abrupt Decays because it's important in this.
Showing us his hand.
Yeah.
Showing us the sideboard with
all those Tidebinder mages too.
Yeah.
You can see why those 1/1 hubs are in the deck to facilitate those pinpoint removal spells coming out of the sideboard.
It's funny how courteous Tony is by showing us his cards every now and then, but he didn't bother to send a deck list. So, shove him.
Ask and you shall not receive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of effort.
Look, Merfolk is one of those decks that you already know what they're playing.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you could probably write out your opponent's Merfolk list and having never met them in your life.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And get within probably up to 70 to 73 cards. I think. Like there's not a lot of variation in these Merfolk lists. It's about basically whether or not they choose to play Wasteland or not is kind of one of the main differences you see, and also that white splash.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting seeing him chuck down, some more disruption against him, or just even stopping relevant elf.
I think we could see a game here where Chalice the Void takes over.
Yeah.
But the power of the Elves deck is that a lot of the time they can have between 1 to 2 Elves down already, and then they can kind of work around the Chalice by casting those Green Sun Zeniths and casting those Natural Orders. That's definitely one of the advantages that the Natural Order Elves has over the Chaos Elves, being able to have a threat that isn't just taken out by Chalice of the Void.
And also searching for a Rex Sage with Natural Order doesn't go astray.
Yeah. I think most of the time if you're resolving a Natural Order, you're probably getting a Creative to take
just
things
do it
down.
anyway. That's right. Well, sometimes you're desperate, you can Rex Sage for, get a Rex Sage and it's only 4 mana to get it with Green Suns, but then you have to wait for a little bit longer to get the Cradle
Yeah.
So,
Well,
the thing is there, the Chalice does really shut him off, which is very unfortunate.
If Nick was noticing Tony's mana base in game 1, he would have seen that there was a 1/1 hub there. So maybe he expects some amount of Sword Supply Shares Path to Exile out of the sideboard, and he knows that maybe the Cradle of Plan isn't going to work because Tony's able to just kind of take out that biggest attacker and maybe
right.
survive.
Tony does have a Chalice in hand and potentially.
We can see a Path to Exile. We can see a Lord of Atlantis there. Oh, we can see this Birchwell Ranger just getting snagged, just to snag him back to his hand, and
it's annoying, that's for sure.
It is annoying, but the interesting thing about Birchwell Rangers is it does have that morph ability. So if Nick is able to, Tony's able to resolve a Chalice here, Nick can just go on and morph it. Or we can see a missed land drop here for Tony.
Oh, that's a beating.
It's not good.
Yeah, no.
It's not good. That makes that Vapor Snake play just terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Yeah, one thing to Vapor Snag probably isn't the correct one. it's unfortunate when you know your deck takes probably 2 or 3 turns to combo off, which is what Nick's deck is, to get a natural order out or to get Green Sun Zenith for something that matters. You know, to even get a Birchlaw straight away might be enough, but it's most likely not. Because you see this coming down straight away. We've got
you can see unfortunately Tony missing that land drop, just let Nick put 3 Elves into play, just 3 1/1 guys, and now that Chalice is looking a lot less threatening because he's already got a bunch of mana in play, and he's already got ways to untap them.
That's right.
It's definitely, I mean, Nick's definitely not in the worst position here with, you know, Korean Rangers, and it's going to take slightly more thinking, I think, but he's definitely not out of you know, contention.
I mean, 1 isn't even the best number to put it on. It'd be 2, right? Are we not like blocking off Elvish Vision?
No. One is definitely, you want to block off that glimpse, you want to block off those Heritage Druids and Little Sentinels.
Sure.
And we can see him just going for the natural order here, and no force of will, so here comes the hoof.
A hoof?
Just gonna come in for a cool 8 damage. And now we see Tony getting put in the same situation he was in game 1. He's just got a 5/5 coming at him every turn, and not a lot he can do about it. Only Mutavaults to stop it, but he does have a Phantasmal Image, so he will be able to make a copy of that Crater Hoof Behemoth.
Okay.
Which can block it. And
it's probably the best thing that he can get.
Yeah, it's unlikely that Nick is going to have a way to target it.
Interesting. I think Nick just drew a Cavern of Souls.
He did draw a Cavern of Souls, which is a great way to get around Chalice.
Yeah.
Because Chalice counters spells, and Kevin says, "Well, I'd like you to not counter this. How about this elf spell not counter?"
Yeah.
So.
And I think he's got double glimpse in
2
hand as
glimpses,
well, which is a bit sad.
Yeah, it's a bit rough. As we saw from the High Tide game earlier, Tony is pretty good about saying, "Hey, I'm going to remember my Chalice triggers on your 1-drop spells."
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just, it kind of boggles my mind a little bit that Tony kept a hand with no white mana in it either. You know, like just having not a Tundra or anything like that kind of really slowed him down. I think he may have just seen all the sideboard cards they needed and just went, "Oh, well, maybe I'll draw the land that I need."
Yeah, I think him seeing the Chalice, him seeing the Vapor Snag, it's like, alright, I got a plan. If he gets an elf in play, I'm going to snag it, I'm going to untap the Chalice, and he's not going to be able to cast any more elves. Yeah, you can see Nick just electing, alright, fine.
Yeah,
let's just trade 5/5.
Which is probably fine, because now he's got nothing.
Yeah.
And at least he can swing for 2.
Yeah. I think I would have definitely gotten greedy and attacked my elves there.
Yeah.
If Tony blocks one of them, you're getting in 6 and you're doing half of Tony's life total, and you're
That's right. But I think he's more probably considering the fact that he really wants to get that combo off. You know, like if he can find a way to get an Abrupt Decay, or if he can find a Rex Sage or something, he can just cast it and then get rid of it, and then just combo off with these special ranges.
I think you can see a bit of a number happening here with Tony's sideboard plan of the Pathway Exiles, because now there's a Chalice in play. You can't cast them.
You shut yourself off.
You shut yourself off from using the Pathway Exiles. The one thing about the Chalice of the Void, it doesn't stop, is that natural order, and it's kind of an awkward tension here, because what you force the Elves to do is not play its traditional Glimpse of Nature plan. You force it to find the natural order, and then your answer to a natural order is stopped by the Chalice. So you're kind of in a very awkward scenario.
I think Nick just having quite a few options to get there.
Yep.
I mean, I think 1 on Chalice is still always going to be correct, but
just saw him turning that Cavern of Souls into an island, which stops the stopping of Chalice.
It does, but he does have that Pendelhaven, which is currently shutting off those Mutavaults. Those Mutavaults are not dealing any damage, and I think Nick's able to kind of get a bit more aggressive here and kind of get in points of damage, chipping away.
It looks like it's going to be a pretty slow game from here on in, just for a little bit. Hopefully someone can pick up something that will speed the game up a little bit more.
We can see Tony having just a lot of Atlantis in his hand, which will allow him to deploy that and make those Muta Welts into 3/3s, which will unfortunately kind of stop him from stop Nick from kind of racing him in any way.
Yeah.
That True Name Nemesis is also a great way to stop a race from happening, because
you see Tony pointing at Nick as if to say, "I target you."
Yeah.
As if there was anyone that he wasn't going to target, but it's probably better to just
to be fair, you can choose a player, so you can choose yourself, but save that True Name Nemesis from all those earthquake effects.
Oh, yeah, fair.
And you can see the classic fetch land Find My Dryad Arbor play here happening as Nick increases his board position in an effort to maybe go wide and get around Tony's only one blocker at the moment. If he does choose to attack with all three guys and use the Pendelhaven, he will be able to get in 3 damage, which is a third of
exactly.
a third of Tony's life total, at the cost of probably that Virtual Rangers.
I think he sees that and he's probably just waiting just a little bit longer until he can maybe get 6 or 7 instead of 3.
Yeah.
The True Name is now started a clock, so Nick really needs to find a way to close this game out if he wants to get it.
One of the things that Nick could draw that would be key here, I think, would be Green Sun Zenith. Yeah, you can see him just pursuing the aggressive line here of smash you for 3. Just taking a third of his life away in exchange for that Dryad Arbor.
Yeah, which is probably reasonable. I mean,
I think it's the right move. I mean, Nick's on 17, so getting hit by True Name, it'll hurt.
Not as bad as getting hit by True Name again and again and again. You know, like at least he's doing something.
Yeah.
And maybe getting him to that 6 is relevant for a natural order and a creative behemoth based plan.
Yeah. Which is fair. Okay. So we see Nick just tossing up his options. He's got a hand full of cards, and
it looks like most of them have a CMC of 1.
Yeah, which is very unfortunate.
It's
I think
pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he can't get that. So he's counted. Oh, hello. Oh no, he couldn't even flash back it anyway because the CMC is still.
Well, he could, but it would get counted. Yeah.
So I think he counted it, and then Tony reminded him of the chalice, and went, "Okay, I guess I'll just put this right in the bin."
Yeah.
Which is a good thing to do on camera, I suppose.
Well, maybe he had to go to discard anyway. And there's a pretty high chance of like Tony just like saying okay, and then being like, "Whoops."
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you take the if you've got to go to discard, then just why not?
It's pretty low impact to just throw that Cabal Therapy out there, and if it gets counted, it gets counted. You know? Oh, Wasteland taking out that Pendelhaven. Kind of like
exactly what he needed.
Reducing Nick's ability to pump his guys and just taking away another green source is pretty relevant here. Like at the moment, it's kind of difficult for Nick to cast a natural order.
Yes, it's starting to get harder and harder as time goes by, and it seems that Tony is still just playing down those cards. You know, swinging with True Name. It's not too bad for him at the moment.
Did we imagine that Wasteland?
No, I think
it was not his card.
I think what's happened is that somebody's come on, seen this match, and gone, here, you should just Wasteland him.
Yeah,
you know,
it was definitely.
I
think it was just sitting on the side of the table.
Yeah, it was very confusing. I was like, am I in some kind of Wasteland-based fever dream right now? Like, what is going on? Yeah, true.
So it's definitely a good strategy to play that Wasteland from someone else's deck, but I think all in all is
all in all, we kind of refrained from allowing players to receive cards from other people to deploy in the matches.
Is that an official judge rule? Or
I think well, it in these kind of like casual tournaments where everyone's just trying to have a good time. It's
you can play whatever card you want.
Yeah, like I don't mind intermatch lending, but at the sanctioned level, we kind of have to shy away from that. it creates a kind of a brutal team mentality where one player just has access to a whole library of cards, and maybe someone who has kind of less friends than you'd hope from someone engaging in a social activity just doesn't have access to the library of cards that another player might.
So it really becomes quite a better game of Magic when it's a popularity contest, right?
Yeah, that's true. We try to keep that kind of thing to just at the regular rules enforcement level, whereas we get to these more competitive legacy events, we wanna shy away from that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So what do we see happening here?
Nick tapping a lot of mana here.
Yeah.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe. Nope. No, all right, floating a bunch of mana and then dying. Oh. The Elder Scale Worm. He was only 1 mana away from having that Elder Scale Worm, and if that got in play, honestly, Tony, I don't think he could win.
Yeah.
He's got all of his Vapor Snags, all of his Path to Exiles are all turned off.
Mm-hmm.
He would be in rough shape.
Oh dear.
Just that one turn too short, because if Nick had found that land drop a little bit earlier, he would have been able to use the Quarian Ranger to untap an elf and just untap that Bayou and play it again and get to that crucial 7 mana.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Nick sided in before, but I think Nick will be looking for some abrupt decays potentially.
Yep, yeah, some kind of way to just get that chalice out of there. Just get it off the board for a second, and then we can maybe have a good, nice little glimpse turn where we draw lots of cards and play lots of dorks.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, game 3, it's always more exciting when you've got the kind of decider match going to a game 3. It's less one-sided, more of a even matchup, you could say, or a just an interesting game, I guess.
Just FYI for anyone who doesn't know what an Elder Scale Worm is, it's something that's new to the Elves deck that I know Nicholas is running, and it's a 7 mana 4 green with trample, and it has when Elder Scale enters the battlefield, if your life total is 7, your life total becomes 7. As long as you have 7 or more life, damage that will reduce your life total to less than 7 reduces it to 7 instead. Now, a funny thing about this is that I've had it come out against me while playing Tin Fins, and then having a player to the side of me just whisper a little something in my ear saying, you know that life lost is not damage, and I go, oh, that's interesting. So, Tendrils unfortunately gets around it, which makes it, in his eyes, a slightly worse card.
Yeah, it does have a certain vulnerability to those ritual-based combo decks that can use something that looks a lot like damage, but it's not actually damage. So there's a little bit of technicality that'll get you there, but it's not going to come up in this matchup. If you manage to get an Elder Scale Worm in play, and there's a Chalice on 1 in play, Tony's not really going to be able to do much about it.
Yeah, that's right.
We're just going to sit here until Nick decides to blow up the Chalice and maybe plays a bunch of Elves and plays a Great Elf and ends the game that way.
Who would you favour in this matchup?
I think it's very draw dependent and very kind of like play dependent, because if Nick being on the play in this game 3, I think is tremendously important, because it gives him a chance to deploy either up to like 3 creatures by turn 3, and as we saw in game 1, just being able to have that in Middle Central, have that Heritage Druid, and have maybe a Quarian Ranger or something going on, just so that you can keep bouncing an Elves Visionary and kind of play through a Chalice.
Yeah.
Or just being able to set up an excellent turn 3 where you maybe even are able to if Tony hasn't played a Chalice, just glimpse and go off and kill Tony in that same turn, and hoping that your Cabal Therapy will take care of any Force of Wills from Tony, and you can just resolve a natural order and get a giant hoof going. It's a bit unfortunate on Nick's side that he doesn't actually play any Lords. Maybe an Elvish Archdruid and an Elvish Champion would help him a bit better, because his creatures are just so small. So they just match up so poorly against what Tony's presenting. Because if he had an access to some kind of Lord, it's possible he could present a clock that might even race Tony's, because his creatures are just often so much cheaper. All costing 1. you can just deploy 2 of them on turn 2 and then play a Lord on turn 3, and you're just attacking for a lot more than what the Merfolk deck can put up.
Yeah, I think Nick is just not used to using his creatures to attack. You know?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how small they are, he doesn't care. It's probably a sideboard consideration, but I think even if he's on the play or anything, like he can just get to turn 3 and just have all his creatures tapped, have a Crater Hoof down, and then attack with whatever's left over. You know, he doesn't really care about having.
I think he's learning because he's just attacked with the Nettle Sentinel.
Ooh.
Well, if he plans to cast a spell this turn, that's a very wise choice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're just going to play a green spell, then.
So we saw them both mull to 6. Lachlan, do you think that changes anything for either of them? That doesn't make it just equal?
Yeah, well, it does kind of hurt Nick, obviously, being on the play, and he does need the downside to Nick's deck in this matchup is the fact that he does need actually a critical number of kind of dorks and action.
Yeah.
Whereas Tony just needs maybe a hate piece, and it doesn't matter what creatures he has.
Like, I think Nick's kept a really good hand 6 here because turn 1 Nettle Sentinel pass.
Oh,
No.
That's one way to shut off a Chalice of the Void.
Yeah.
Just get it down before Chalice happens, and you won't see anymore. It also shuts off Force of Will. So Nick is safe in the knowledge that his spells are going to resolve this match as long as Mr. Teague sticks around.
For anyone who doesn't know, Gadok Teague is a green-white legendary creature, the Kithkin Advisor. It says non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be cast. Non-creature spells with X in the mana cost can't be cast. Great against Tendrils, great against Force of Will, as you said, great against Chalice.
He can't cast his own natural order, though.
He can't cast his own natural order. It also shuts off his Greenstone's Earth, which ironically enough he used to actually find Teague.
Yeah.
But Teague's a creature that likes to keep things small. He wants to keep things between 1 and 3 converted mana costs.
Yeah.
So that's a sweet spot for him.
Which is probably just fine if you're throwing down 100 elves.
Yep.
I think Nick should just go potentially with the just bash in.
Just go ham.
Just get the damage down.
Yeah, and you can see Tony like having 2 islands in play, not playing a Lord, and having a Vial on 1 is just a very interesting line for him to take. I think what he's planning to do here is Vapor Snag that Gadok Teague at end of turn maybe, or even in combat, because currently Nick doesn't have a way to deploy it. He doesn't have he did not fetch a Savannah with that fetch land, so he's not going to be able to deploy it if it gets back to the hand.
So let's
see what his plan is.
Tony's
not done a whole lot this game, so hopefully he's just building up the hand that he needs.
And I can see Nick, I think Nick's just carefully considering about what does 2 islands up mean in Merfolk? What's that about? Honestly, there's a lot of 2-drop spells in that deck, so I don't really know what's going on.
Vial on 1 as well.
Yeah, Vial on 1 is really only Curse Catch you care about. He's choosing to Vapor Snag the Nettle Sentinel here, which is a kind of weird decision, I think.
Especially
since he can just
redeploy
it.
I feel like that's an act of desperation. If I'm completely honest with you, it seems that he's going, what's the creature with the highest toughness?
Teague is a 2/2 as well, and he from the cards that he played, he wouldn't be able to redeploy it. But Trinonosis kind of is stopping the assault here now. So we're back on
on game 2.
Back on game 2 is we've got kind of a board stall here. Now Nick has a Crater of Behemoth in hand, so he's got to figure out how he's going to cast that. And at the moment, he can make 3 mana using the 3 elves, bounce with Quirion, then taps a 4. He's got 7 mana, so he's only 1 mana away from slamming down that Crater Hoof, and I'm pretty sure that'll finish Tony off with Gadok Teague getting in the red zone as an 8/8, and Crater Hoof joining him as a 10/10.
Yeah. So I think Nick's probably could just be hoping for a land, but really there's not a whole lot that could be back to him.
Next turn, he just has it. he's able to use tap the Bay for mana and then return it using the Korean Ranger, and then just play it again, and then
Okay,
that'll give him the full 8 mana. And with that Gaddock in play, Tony can't counter it, so there's not a lot that can really go wrong. Gonna only see maybe another Vapor Snag, but yeah.
Which makes Gaddock just slightly better for Nick. You know, we were talking about how it was not great for him because he can't cast Green Suns and he can't cast Natural Order, but I mean, he's just getting
that. Doesn't matter when you just get. Doesn't matter when you gotta just straight up pay 8 for your Crater Hoof. Don't worry about it.
I mean, and a Natural Order isn't gonna get a Crater Hoof on board from your hand either. So you know, when you've got Crater Hoof in hand,
yeah, of course.
You've.
I think he might be running 2.
He does, yeah. I think he runs a few, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're shutting off Natural Order and you have one in hand, you're going to go for the strategy of attempting to deploy Crater Hoof in hand.
Completely reasonable.
Yeah, I think Tony here has drawn a Force of Will, which is kind of not what he wants to see at all.
Yeah.
And I think maybe choosing to deploy that Phantasmal image as a copy of something might have been a better play. Maybe another true name. Probably, maybe another Lord, considering you already have a true name in hand, just to get a little bit more toughness on those true names, so they're able to block and soak up trample damage a little bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. So having 2 true names would be fantastic at the moment because I mean not now obviously because it's Nick's turn and he's probably swinging for lethal this turn.
Yeah, if you can figure out the math here, he definitely has lethal. We've got 3 off the Heritage Druid and the Burslar Ranger and the Nil Sentinel. And you float a mana off the Bayou, which brings you to 4. Play the Bayou again. 5, 6, 7 tap the Dryad, and then Birchlaw Rangers and whatever elf you untapped with Korean Ranger gets you to the full 8. You can even untap the Dryad with it to make sure that you've got another elf untapped.
You see him with his green mana dice out. He's getting the math started now. He's already used his Birchlaw, put a little dice on it. He's really.
Yep.
You said before when Anthony only had 2 islands down, thinking what can he cast with those 2 islands. I really think Nick's just working out the maths in his own head about the combo that he's throwing down.
And Anthony's going to
attempt to Force of Will, but unfortunately he's going to be reminded that Gaddock does not like Force of Will.
No,
he's not a friend of Force of Will. Okay. So I think we're going to see Tony do some quick math here and probably just concede.
I mean, yeah, at this point.
He is getting attacked for approximately 200 billion. So
I think it's +6, +6, everything's getting away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, +7,
7,
+7.
+7,
Sorry,
+7.
didn't say that right.
So he's got 8 on the Burslar Rangers, 9 on the Nell Sentinel, 12 on the Crater Hoof, and
it all has trample.
And it all has trample, and another 9 on the Gaddock. So we've got well over 30 damage here.
Oh my gosh.
And Tony's got what? 4, 6, 9 points of toughness. So if he was on 22, he might be able to survive. But unfortunately, he's not. So
the incredibly painful thing about this is he's trying his very hardest just to not die this turn. However, if he does manage to survive, all his creatures will die, and Nick will still be in the same
true names will survive.
Oh, true names will survive.
And they would be able to crack for theoretical 6, but theoretical 6 is a lot further away than the actual 17
than the
that
current.
Nick's on.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Tony's just hanging on here.
And in these situations, it's important to get your math right, so that maybe theoretically he could block in such a way that Nick assigns trample damage incorrectly. But we can see the handshake here, and Tony's going to a very negative life total.
Going to Phantasmal Image.
One line I think that Tony neglected to kind of picture there is maybe leaving that vial on 2, actually casting the True Name Nemesis, and popping in that Phantasmal Image, copying the Crater Hoof in Nick's turn, in order to get the bonus, in order to give his guys a bunch of toughness.
Yeah.
And that would have soaked up a lot more damage, and maybe he would have been able to kill him on the crackback if he drew a Lord.
Yeah,
would have had 5 plus leaving it on 2, so he has the most amount of Lords that he can draw.
Yeah.
So he would have had 8 off the True Names, 5 off the Behemoth for a total of 13, and the Mutavault, the Mutavault would have been 3, taking him to 16, so he could have put him to 1.
Oh.
Ugh.
That would have been, that would have been interesting if they had gone that line. But yeah, I think, just being able to hardcast that Crater Hoof. I mean,
just sort of turning out real good.
I mean, it's the consistency of the Elves deck.
Just makes a lot of mana.
You can try and disrupt as much as you like, but like they can just rebuild, come back, play some Elves, and suddenly they've got a Crater Hoof down, and it's definitely one of the legacy decks that you have to think a lot about, like so much math. And Nick's a smart guy. I would never be able to play Elves. I can't think that hard.
I can't even follow him when he's explaining it.
He says to you, I'm doing this or I'm making this. I'm like, okay.
It's like, alright, I trust you, buddy.
That's right. I'm not going to try and work it out. But no, it's definitely a very technical deck, and he's been playing it for a few years now, so he's been piloting that for a while.
Yep, and his reward for piling up for so long was at this legacy event you took it out with 3-0.
Yeah.
You won a sweet 3 boosters from Jolt Games in Mitchell, so if you ever find yourself...
Yeah, shout out to Jolt Games. It's a relatively new store in the Canberra area, but it's definitely a good one. Very high ceilings. It's good.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
No, they were nice enough to allow us to host this event. So they just gave us their table space and helped out with some prizes, and it's been really good, and it's been going on. We've got our 5th event coming up next week, I think, and everybody's enjoying it. We're getting a pretty solid turnout for Canberra, between 12 and 14 players every fortnight.
Which is fantastic for the start of what was it, 7
great.
maybe? Yeah. So it's good to just bring back that legacy scene in Canberra.
Yeah, I mean, Legacy is the one format that I've really only played. I went from kitchen table Magic to Legacy. So,
which is a reasonable transition.
I mean,
you want to go from the cheapest to the most expensive, one of the most expensive.
Yeah.
If you go in, you may as well go in deep, right?
Yeah,
that's it. That's the only way to do it, I think, in Magic. But yeah, and having a legacy scene in Canberra has been really good. I've been enjoying it, and I think everybody else has too. And within Australia, we've got quite a few large Eternal events. We've got CanCon happening in January.
Yep, CanCon. It's always on the Australia Day weekend. So that'll be the release weekend of Aether Revolt. So hopefully there won't be too many Eternal relevant cards printed in that set, because people will be kind of scrambling after the pre-release product to obtain those.
That'd be sad. But yeah, so it's been fun to have this going, and I'm sure we'll keep up these videos and keep them coming back for next fortnight's event.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thank you, guys.